Airplanes have become one of the most common methods of travel, especially for long distances. They are in fact the safest means of travel, with approximately 10 million people taking a commercial flight every day. Gone are the days of a week-long train ride. Now we can board a plane in Los Angeles and be in New York City in a mere 6 hours. Most people get on a plane without a care in the world, anxious to get to their destination. Sometimes, though, the destination is death. On July 9, 1982, passengers boarded a Pan Am 727 from the gates of the Miami International Airport. The final destination was San Diego, California, and there were 2 en route stops scheduled in the flight. The first was in New Orleans and the second was in Las Vegas. An en route stop is like a layover, but not everybody departs the aircraft. The plane may refuel, but more importantly, it lets some passengers off and some passengers on before taking off to its next destination. Kind of like a bus trip, but in the air and much faster. Pan Am Flight 759 had departed Miami with no problems and landed at the New Orleans International Airport, which is now called the Louis Armstrong New Orleans International Airport. A routine changeover in passengers took place at 3:58 p.m., then the plane began taxiing to runway 10. While they taxied, they received a message from ATIS. The Automatic Terminal Information Service is a continuous broadcast of recorded aeronautical information in busier terminal areas. The broadcast contains essential information such as current weather information, active runways, available approaches, and any other information required by pilots. This broadcast stated, quote, Time 1855 Zulu, weather 2500 scattered, 25000 thin broken, visibility 6 miles in haze, temperature 9 or 0, wind 240 at 2, winds are calm, altimeter at 001. I have no idea what any of that means, but the weather at the airport that day was recorded as scattered, variable broken clouds at 3,000 feet, thunderstorms and moderate rain showers. There were no fronts or low-pressure areas and no severe weather warnings for the time and area around New Orleans International Airport. The intensity of a thunderstorm for aviation purposes was measured in a scale of 1 to 6, with 6 being the most intense. A level 1 to 2 storm will have moderate turbulence and lightning, and does not pose a significant threat to the aircraft. In a level 3 storm, severe turbulence is possible. In a level 4 storm, severe turbulence is likely. A level 5 storm will have severe turbulence, powerful wind gusts, and possible hail, and a level 6 storm features large hail, severe turbulence, and extreme wind gusts. Anything above level 3 was to be avoided at all costs. However, the pilot's weather radar didn't show any storms above level 2. At 4:07 p.m., Flight 759 was cleared for takeoff on runway 10. As they accelerated down the runway, a 13-knot wind shear appeared. Wind shear is basically a significant difference in the wind speed and/or direction within a small area. For example, if the wind at one end of the runway is blowing north at 15 knots, and at the other end of the runway the wind is blowing south at 5 knots, then a 20-knot wind shear is said to be occurring on the runway. Just before they took off, the headwind began to decrease rapidly as the plane encountered a 38-knot wind shear at the edge of the nearby storm cell. At 4:08 and 40 seconds, Flight 759 lifted off from the runway and began climbing, but it was already too late. The headwind evaporated completely and was replaced by a 7-knot downdraft, then an increasing tailwind. A tailwind will cause an aircraft to lose lift. This made it extremely difficult to gain altitude with the 727. The aircraft reached a maximum altitude of barely more than 100 feet, then began to descend. 5 seconds after liftoff, Captain McCullers said to First Officer Pierce, quote, "Come on back, you're sinking, Don, come on back." The plane roared just 50 feet above the neighborhoods of Kenner in Louisiana. In seconds, part of the plane's left wing was ripped off by trees along Williams Boulevard. The aircraft struck another set of trees and rolled the plane to the left. The plane crashed into a house, completely destroying it before cartwheeling down the street, breaking apart as it went. Suddenly, the fuel ignited and the aircraft burst into flames. All 145 passengers and crew on board the plane died, as well as 8 people on the ground. 4 members of the Giancourt family were killed when their house was destroyed. Barbara Schultz and her 7-year-old daughter Rachel survived with severe burns, but Barbara's 11-year-old daughter Jennifer and Rachel's 6-year-old friend Lisa Bay both died. First responders on the scene were met with a disaster of epic proportions. The neighborhood was a mixture of plane debris mixed with wood and brick from demolished homes. The rescuers spent hours searching for survivors, and when all hope seemed lost, a police officer noticed movement under some wreckage. He went to the area and lifted a mattress where he found 16-month-old Melissa Trahan. She had been in her crib when it flipped upside down and her mattress covered her, shielding her from flames and debris. Unfortunately, Melissa's mother Melanie and her sister, 4-year-old Bridget, didn't survive the catastrophe. Investigators from the National Transportation Safety Board studied the scene and the data from both the airplane and the tower. They placed no blame on the pilots as there was no sign that the takeoff would be unsafe. They determined that the plane had unknowingly flown straight into a microburst. A microburst is a column of sinking air within a thunderstorm. The problem was that there was no technology at the time that could detect a microburst before it happened. After Delta Flight 191 crashed at Dallas-Fort Worth Airport due to a microburst 3 years later, the FAA began the Airborne Wind Shear Detection and Avoidance Program. They mandated that all turbine-powered commercial aircraft must have onboard wind shear detection systems by 1993. When you take a vacation, remember that flying is still the safest way to travel. That being said, make sure you buckle up and follow all the safety guidelines, because you never know if you'll be headed to a dream vacation or a nightmare disaster. Thanks for letting us tell you this sinister story. If you enjoyed it, subscribe on whatever platform you're on and hit like, rate us, or leave us a comment. Join us next week where we'll take you somewhere sinister.